Yep, the recording's going.
Here we are live.
Okay, so I'd like to take this time. I see it's 7:31, so we'll call the September 7th, 2022 City of Huntington Woods Historic District Commission to order. First order of business, we have two sets of meetings. Let's separate those two sets of meetings, please, and the approval of minutes. So let's start with the August 6th meeting minutes. If we could have, well, let's first of all see if there's any updates to the meeting minutes that are necessary. Does anybody note anything in the meeting minutes that need to be corrected?
I noted one thing. The spelling of Michal's name, is that how you spell your name? M-I-C-H-A-E-L? Should be
Yes.
A-L. A-L?
Yeah, A-L.
Okay, well, it's been spelled as like the name Michael.
Oh,
We'll
yeah, I'm
correct
used to it.
We'll correct that. Okay.
Thank you. I didn't notice.
It's a good thing Steve's looking out for you.
Yeah, appreciate that.
We'll take care of that.
Okay, any other corrections to the August 6th meeting minutes?
Mr. Chair, just for the point of clarification on this, it shows
Excuse
it's
me.
August 6th, but it's actually August 3rd. minutes.
Yep,
So
sorry.
For the record, let's.
For the record, it's August 3rd, 2022. Sorry, I did flip to the cover of the meeting minutes.
No problem.
If there's no more corrections, I would entertain a motion on the meeting minutes.
I move that they be accepted as corrected.
Does anyone second, please?
I second.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Or any abstentions? Thank you. The second set of meetings minutes is from, better check the cover now, August 24th.
That was a special meeting, Mr. Chair.
That is correct. Does anybody have any corrections? I know there's a few.
Well, Hank, it looks to me as though there's a section missing. Because we had a long, where the questions and answers end, before the motions. We had a fairly lengthy conversation about various matters. I had the questions about that metal filler and the possibility of adding a second return. I think Chris had a question about, how that metal covering slotted into the new windows. I think we were also confirming the grill, the design of the grill. There were a few issues, and it seems to me that conversation probably would have run maybe 2 or maybe even 3 times as long as what we're showing.
Okay, what I would suggest then is that I can check back with the minutes taker, although we are getting a new minutes taker because this one's no longer available.
So, you even got a chance to get me on record trying to do math in my head. It's probably worth capturing.
I'll see if we can't get that added into this. So what I would suggest is that you defer this minutes until the next meeting, and let's see if we can't get some more added into that. So typically what they've been doing is they've been giving us pretty much a verbatim, which has been real good specifically for historic. Took a long time to get that. But let's see if we can't do a little better on that, and I'll talk to them and see if they're still willing to go ahead and add that in, or if not, I can get maybe our next minute taker to add it in for us.
I just think it was important because it did sort of show that in absence of
The wrap
detailed installation details, but it did show that the exposure was similar.
Not a
I
problem.
think that would be appropriate. So I guess we need a motion to defer
To the next regular.
to the next regular scheduled meeting, the approval of these minutes. Can somebody please make that motion?
Motion to defer the approval of minutes to the next meeting.
Maybe I can get a second?
Second.
Thank you. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right, rolling right along here. Let's move right into our application. Sorry, I'm just got to flip my pages. So this is for an application for the Lipton residence at 26330 Hendry. And I see that Mr. Heller is here. So just a favor, we'd love for, the way this works, there's a little Rogers Rules of Order, but everybody in the applicant side, I would love it if you'd like to speak, please do so during that first part. Just remember that when you step up to the microphone, just please state your name. If you live in Huntington Woods, an address would be appropriate too.
And one other point too with that is just for the benefit of our audiovisual consultant in the back. If you don't speak into a microphone or if you move away from a microphone, nobody will hear you and that will not show up on the minutes. So it would be very important to speak into the microphone. Ben, you can sit down.
Can I sit down?
Yeah, you can sit there with that, so. I just want to make sure that we're all speaking into microphones. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, good evening, all of you. My name is Ellen Lipton, and I am one of the applicants along with my husband, Mark. We are residents at 26330 Hendry. So, little note, Chris and I, we served on the, I guess, precursor when it was the Zoning Board of Appeals, before there was the Historic, so it's nice to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Steve and I are also neighbors on Hendry, so it's nice to also see my good friend, Commissioner Jenks. So thank you all, and we look forward to answering any questions you might have. Thank you.
Thank you. You're on.
Thank you for your time tonight. My name is Ben Heller, and I have designed and worked with the Liptons to come up with an addition to the home. We've tried to be really sensitive to the historical aspects of the home and just the entire historical area, which is something that I've always been really conscious of, and try to make a positive impact on all the projects that we touch in Huntington Woods. This project in particular, you know, and I did this rendering, and I know everyone has the plans, but I made a copy. I know it's sometimes nice to hold in your hand because it's three-dimensional. If you guys can pass those to your partner.
Hey, do you have a copy?
I do.
It just helps to kind of
I'll
see
get you.
the massings and see how things are happening there. I'll let those everyone get one in their hands. You know, flat drawings tell one thing, a little three-dimensional can help to give things in perspective. So basically, the landscaping you can see in the picture, that's all existing. It was a project that was done several years ago, and they used some Fond du Lac limestone on the rise, and it's all bluestone, which is two of the materials that we're planning on matching. We were going to use the stone on the chimney, not to duplicate the chimney that's historical, to leave that, let it be, and this will blend really nicely, but still differentiate itself and blend nicely. And then the rest of the walls, you can see from the rendering, are not walls. There's very little wall. It's just minimal, and it's brick, and it's very similar to the addition that was built, I think, in about 2007 or 6. That would be the family room off the kitchen and a family room off the rear of the house. That we're kind of picking up on those details. Both are not historical, but in terms of just placing the addition, everything that we're doing here meets, you know, all the ordinances in terms of setback and square footages and lot coverage. So we're totally complying with all of that, but we really tried to pay attention to putting the addition 100% in the rear of the property. So we are proposing to make no alterations to the sides or to the front of the home, zero. And to none of the other of the existing home. I mean, this is an addition. If it were ever removed, it could come right off and the house would be just like it is. And I know that's an important aspect of the criteria with the Secretary of the Interior standards for the historical preservation. So we purposely designed it that way so they could just totally come off and it would be fine if that were the case in the future. It's a very light addition in terms of it's just openness, and that's really what we're trying to do is that, you know, I think we all learned through COVID that we spend more time in our home and wanting to be a part of nature a little bit more and to be within the ordinances, but to add something onto your home where you can have furniture that wouldn't get wet outside and it was in, you know, a room you can enjoy 3 seasons of the year. And so that was the marching order for what we were trying to do. And I think we've kind of accomplished that. We altered the pitch purposely to not match any of the pitches on the house. again, you can see that the entire wall of the addition steps in from the back of the garage, which, by the way, is not historical. It was added at some point, but we did step it in from that. And so everything we attach to is actually a previously added, I think, addition to the home. And again, really, the thing about not altering any of the house and not making it, differentiating it by breaking the wall, breaking the roof pitch lines, but also allowing it to tie in and look handsome and not and be something that still looks like it has some balance to it without, being part of the historical house. And with that, I would turn it over for any questions.
Thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate the rendering. Hank?
Basically, what I'll do is I'll go through the Secretary of the Interior's guidelines and just have a couple comments. Again, those are certainly all open for discussion from you folks, and Mr. Heller certainly can answer any questions that you might have, as will I. Basically, the house is a rear porch or lanai located in the rear of the structure on the northeast corner. It's not visible from the front, so you cannot see this. But it is visible from the back. But he's lowered the roof pitch, changed material on a chimney so that there's a differentiation between that. When you go to the standards, it says the property shall be used for its historic purpose or to be placed in a new use that requires minimal change to the defining characteristics of the building and its site and environment. The use is still single-family residential. There is no change there. So that's one of the things that you want to take into consideration. 2, the historic character of a property shall be retained and preserved. The removal of historic materials or alterations of features and spaces that characterize the property shall be avoided. You would have to determine if this alters the historic character of the structure. Again, Mr. Heller's articulated that he's not attaching to any part of the structure that is in fact historic. So these were additions that were added within the last 25 years or so, I'm going to go with. And that's going to be a conversation that you might want to have amongst yourselves, because what is there that it's attached to does not meet the 50-year criteria for it to become historic in its own right. And then 3, each property shall be recognized as a physical record of its time, place, and use. Changes that create a false sense of historical development, such as adding conjectural features or architectural elements from other buildings, shall not be undertaken. Again, this should not be applied to additions, as additions are clearly allowed. So the issue then becomes, are you destroying some of the material? Well, where you attach the building, you are in fact taking some material out, or you can't attach to the building. But again, in the additions part, which I've included there for your review, it recommends locating an exterior addition at the rear or at an inconspicuous side of the building. The addition should be smaller in size than the historic building to which it's attached. This is. The height of the addition should not exceed the height of the historic building. This does not. The pitch of the new roof should duplicate pitches used on the historic building. This is different, and the purpose of that is that he's got non-contributing parts of this resource in between his proposed addition and the original resource. And then the facade proportions ratio of width to height should be similar to the historic building. This, we would say meets, or at least I would say meets, of course you're open to discuss it, based on the fact that it's gone down in size and it's becoming a less conspicuous portion of the back of the house. And again, Mr. Heller does have his rendering up for you to take a look at, and I can put it up here so you can see. There's the back portion of the house, and you can see where the chimney is, and to the right of the chimney is what we're looking at. So we're looking at a fairly small part of the house. The addition should be set back from the existing wall plane a minimum of 24 inches to differentiate the addition from historic building. However, this dimension may be reviewed on a case-by-case basis. From the side of the garage and slight step-in from the storage part of the structure, this meets, and again, it's not visible from the street. There is a step-in. It may not be exactly 24 inches, but there is a differentiation in the wall plane between the two structures. Then materials. Materials should be limited to those used on the historic building or compatible with those used on the historic building. When more than one material is used on the same facade, they should be used in a similar manner consistent with the manner in which the materials were originally used. Brick, wood, and stucco are frequently used materials. Vinyl, aluminum, and cement board and other contemporary man-made materials are not recommended. Again, Mr. Heller's matching the stone from the patio addition that was put on years and years ago. So he's bringing that element in. And there's a brick element which does tie the new into the old and gives it some historic character. But the stone that goes around, the stone that is on the chimney and around it do give it the feel of the matching the newer materials that are on there. So again, chimneys should be made of, the materials of the new foundation walls should match the foundation walls of the historic building. If using matching materials is impractical, substitutions which are not obtrusive should be used. And again, he's got brick Rolox, slab on the top of that, and with his materials are not going to be obtrusive. They're going to be materials that are found elsewhere on the property.
Bluestone
Yeah.
floor.
So his bluestone, what he's using the bluestone that he has there, that's gonna be the floor in the addition.
Yes.
Correct. So
And it's all
what you,
patios already.
it's all tied in as far as that goes, which you certainly can discuss. And then it says where the addition need not duplicate the exact form, style, detailing of the historic building, attention should be paid to the following details. Window hoods and lintels, and again, Mr. Heller can address that. Window styles, it's open, so there is no window style to worry about. Entrance and porches, again, you do have steps coming out of that, but it's not like it's an entrance to the house, it's an entrance to the porch, and then there is an entrance to the house. But the entryway to the house, and again, Mr. Heller can speak to this, there always was an entry to the house there. Brickwork with coins, corbels, and other details. He didn't have any right there, but there are Rolox that he has used. Columns and pilasters, and again, the chimneys, which we've discussed already. 2, the addition should be constructed so as there is the least possible loss of historic materials, and so the character-defining features are not obscured, damaged, or destroyed. As far as obscuring goes, pretty much the entire addition or the entire lanai is open. So everything that's on the back wall, except for the tie-in areas, is visible from the back for the most part. And then door and window height to width ratios should respect the historic building. The percentage of glass to wall should approximate that of the historic building. Each elevation should have at least one window. Each elevation has an opening, there is no glass. As you can see on the rendering, it's just open to the public. I mean, the wind and the air will go right through that type of thing. So, that would meet that. As far as that, the loss of historic materials, you're gonna lose material at the attachment points, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Heller? But
Say it again, I'm sorry.
you're going to lose materials at the attachment points where this goes to that.
Yep, just one opening. This is an addition that we actually built for them. I think it was
Years ago.
06. When was it? 02.
Yeah,
So
it
even
was
longer.
just before the
So we
historic
built
district came.
both those additions around that time. And yeah, so there's just one opening there that ties in to here. And we had historical, we had to get
Not in
historical.
02.
Site plan, I think it was.
Could be,
It was site plan back then.
could be.
But yeah, and so that's all that's coming off, and again, there's also was an addition to the garage, was an addition at one point. It was in 08, maybe, 09, the garage addition? Yeah, the garage was like 08, 09. And so there was historical for that one? No,
There would have been, yeah.
There was historical for that one, and that's actually, this gable you see here in the rendering, you guys, as well as the entire garage structure that has their master bedroom above it, which is all allowable, no variances, went through historical, got approved. This addition attaches to this room added in 02 and attaches to the back of the garage added in. Yeah, we have around 10, yeah. And so we're keeping the garage just like it is. There are some kind of unattractive doors on the back of the garage now, which are just now gonna be inside that room that are gonna be closed. You know, just a brick wall inside their space. So other than that, we're not altering the house at all. And that was our intention. They love the house how it is, and it's also, it fit well because it's part of the guideline of the Secretary of the Interior is to make sure if this thing was ever removed, that, hey, the house looks just like it, nothing was affected. And that's what we have in this case.
And then going on to standard 4, where it says most properties change over time, those changes have acquired historic significance in their own right shall be retained and preserved. Typically, that applies to the 50-year rule, which is not anywhere close to this, as you can see the dates that's being discussed here. And again, the area that this is being attached to is part of the existing structure, and nowhere that this is attaching to is part of the original house. 5, distinctive features, finishes, and construction techniques or examples of craftsmanship that characterize the property shall be preserved. The affected surfaces would be the roof and the rear wall, door and window, and Mr. Heller's already articulated the plan for that. 6, deteriorated historic features shall be repaired rather than replaced, and it goes on about the replacement and the severity of deterioration. But as an addition, this would not apply except for the documentation of the elevation that this affects. So basically, at that point in time, we would like to have some documentation or photographic evidence of how it looks now, so that should it be approved, there will be a physical record that can go on to, the BSNA software, which is now where we're trying to put everything, so that there'll be records of it long after we're all done with our respective positions. 7, chemical or physical treatments such as sandblasting that cause damage to historic materials shall not be used. This does not apply. There are no plans, or there is nothing where that would be advantageous. And then 8, significant archaeological resources affected by the project shall be protected and preserved. There's no indication that there's going to be any archaeological discoveries during the course of this. And then 9, new additions, exterior alterations, or related new construction shall not destroy historic materials that characterize the property. The new work shall be differentiated from the old, and Mr. Heller's articulated how he's done that, and shall be compatible with the massing, size, scale, and architectural features to protect the historic integrity of the property and its environment. So again, this would be an addition and could also be considered an exterior alteration. But standard 10 would go on to say that new additions and adjacent or related new construction shall be undertaken in such a manner that if removed in the future, the essential form and integrity of the historic property and its environment would be unimpaired. As the wall this is being added to is the same configuration, if removed, this could be restored, although I really can't imagine why this would ever happen. Typically, people don't take additions off their houses once they put them on. Unless they fail for any reason. But again, to go on, I have gone ahead and I have put the standards, attached them for your purview, and if you have any questions, I am certainly happy to answer them, as I'm sure Mr. Heller is, or the Liptons. Thank you.
Thanks, Hank, for the thorough report. We appreciate that. I can't remember where I started last time, so I'm going to pick on Steve today to start with. If you have any comments, excuse me, my apologies, I forgot to, at this point in time, we're supposed to open for public participation. Seeing none, we didn't get any letters in support or anything like that I'm supposed to acknowledge,
We
Hank?
did not. We
Okay.
had a phone call that asked about it, without identifying themselves, but they did not indicate that there was anything detrimental or anything that concerned them with this project.
I could add the Liptons, out of respect to their neighbors, went to the Barons on one side and the other neighbors on the other side, shared the plans, and did get full support from both neighbors that they support the project.
And I corrected a bad correction. I did go out of order. My apologies. Steve, you are on.
I have no questions.
Thank you.
Robert?
One question, is this for the chimney? Is that actual stone or is that stone veneer?
It would be real, we want to make a real masonry fireplace with fire brick and no prefab metal box, none of that crap. It'll be a real clay flue, and yes, it's real stone.
On the chimney?
Yes, yep, for sure. So it matches, Zaremba did a really beautiful landscape project there several years ago, and they used a stone we can still get, and we're gonna match it. So it's gonna look very integral.
That was my only question.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeffrey.
This is just really a matter of clarification. When you look at the house from the back, on the first floor, is there anything there that's part of the original house that's visible, or is all of that addition?
That's a good question. Let me see if I can.
You want me to answer it?
Yeah, you can probably answer better than the middle stuff.
This is really, I'm talking about the first floor now, not the second.
So going from this side,
This bay window.
from this side across, that's new. This is a walkout door that used to be a window, so that wall is there. This wall used to be the walkout door, but now is a window, so that kind of got split.
Too at some point.
Well, that was before you moved in.
Well, that's the question. So that was, at some point, what you're pointing to right now was added to the original house.
Oh, yeah, well, we added this.
Right.
We altered that. This was added by previous people. This is what we added.
Right, okay.
Well, it's basically none of it's the same.
I will say
Right.
the front of the house, that is where it's really what it was. You know, that entire story half front that the house has, those dormers in the front, and the beautiful brick entryway with the curved walls, with that wood header, that's all original.
Right,
That's
the
all
only-
the original stuff.
The only change, if you remember, this house used to have one garage.
Redfield.
Yeah, there's the Redfield house. And one garage on the left side, and that garage was 2 cars deep.
Mhm.
That was on the, if you're looking at the house, that was on the right. That got moved, so now it was set back. So that's now flat and across, and then the rest, then from that point, if you're looking from the right to the left, that's all original until you get to the new garage on the far left, which I think the Redfield's added. Yeah, and then we did the above it, the upstairs.
So, and also this is just for the record, that the exposed walls, I believe on the wall facing north and the wall facing east, those are all additions, that brick that will be exposed. The lanai is being,
Henry, you mean?
no, from the back, so if I'm reading the plan correctly, in creating the lanai, it's backing on two sides, there are two walls that are going to form the, how do I explain it? I mean, one is on,
If you can show the floor plan, Hank, I can point. So, show it with the lanai, please.
yeah,
That's the as-built, yeah.
Keep out of the way, Hank. There you
There
go.
you go.
Oh,
That's the
one more,
foundation
actually,
plan.
one more.
well, no, this is fine.
Yeah, but that's,
There you go.
there you go.
So this wall, whoops.
That was the addition.
So this wall here,
Could we
and this
try to
wall here,
speak
they're
into
both, they're
microphone,
both
please?
additions, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yeah, 100%. Yes, the room with the bay, you can see the room on the right behind the kitchen and the room that you were just pointing at that we're connecting to were added at the same time. There was nothing there when we did the addition in '02. So to answer your, and then the garage with that room behind it, the garage was there. We added that little storage space because it was allowable, keep staying within the garage allowable space. And therefore, everything we are attaching to is added after 2000.
Right, okay, that's
Yeah.
what I wanted to clarify. Okay, that's it for me.
Okay, thank you.
Kyle?
I don't have any questions.
Thank you.
Mark?
No question.
Jeff?
I do. On sort of the columns that frame the open windows,
Yes, sir.
those will match what looks like the back, because you had sort of indicated in the plans that it was siding, and I just get real uncomfortable.
Oh, 100, to answer that question, if we did say something like that, it was not intentional, that, all the exterior facade of our vertical wall is gonna be brick, where there is, in other words, you see how these existing rooms have roll locks of bricks coming together to form that corner of the bay? Just like that, yes, sir. And basically that is something that we're duplicating to keep it consistent and keep the massing. It's a nice way to finish those corners. We could have done it in just like a timber or something. It's more expensive, obviously, to do this. We just determined that aesthetically it would blend better. If someone did catch a glimpse from the side, it certainly would look more, I think, what you guys would want to see, so that's what we did.
It's perfect.
Thank you.
I don't have any questions. They've all been covered.
I'd like to move acceptance. When you deliberate on it first. Okay.
So, obviously, we're closing the discussion and we're gonna do a little deliberations, so there has been a motion put forth, but, we can either discuss that motion or we
I'll
can,
withdraw.
Withdraw, okay, fine. Either way, we're looking for a motion, and then we'll have discussion about said motion. Or is there any other discussion that's needed? If not, then I'm gonna entertain that motion again, and then we can have some discussion about it.
Yeah.
Is there a second to Mr. Jenks? Okay, so any discussion needed for that motion?
I would think that we might want to reference the guidelines that the project would fall under.
I would agree, so,
I would
Mr.
offer an amendment unless Jeff wants to, one, would it meet guidelines? I see a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9, and 10.
I would just make a slight amendment that I would probably pull 4, because I don't think the additions to the historic property have historic merit in their own right.
At this point, they typically would not qualify.
So otherwise, that would be my own, so it'd be 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, 10, I think? Is that what you said?
Accept that?
That's acceptable, so,
Can you restate the motion for the record, please?
so the motion would be to approve based on compliance with our standards 1, 2, 3, 5, 9, and 10. And I guess based on that amended motion, I probably need a second.
I second.
Okay, so we'll just have a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Are there any opposed? Motion passes. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you guys so much. We really appreciate it. All right, thank you. Sometimes they ask me, you guys are welcome to keep.
Do you want, if you'd like them back, I know they're expensive.
There.
We have to do other.
I'm more than happy to,
Building, but
no, I know.
I don't mind, the renderings are nice. You guys can keep those and hang them up in your homes.
Framing
Have you
service
got a
available.
business card we can flip?
Yeah, absolutely. Keep my business cards there. And we really appreciate your time. Thank you guys for.
Thank you for a thorough presentation. We really
Thank you for
appreciate that.
Providing the easiest project we ever had to look at.
Yes, well, that's good. That's what I want to be.
So Hank,
Thank you guys.
thank you. So on to some other business here. I know we have the administrative approvals that we're going to discuss. Is that correct?
Yes, Mr. Chair. At this point in time, we have, and we try to go through them regularly, but we haven't because we didn't have meeting, we had COVID, we had people that couldn't get in, any projects done. So I do want to go over the administrative approvals and get your input as to whether or not what it is. I did make recommendations towards these, and I did throw some ideas out there for discussion. So if you'd like, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna maybe dim these lights so you can actually see this.
Okay. I'm going to move over.
We'll let you. So basically, administrative approvals come about as part of Public Act 169 of 1970 as amended, which allows for the Historic District Commission to give staff a reasonable amounts of approvals or items for things that happen on a fairly regular and predictable basis so as not to inconvenience people with simple adjustments to their house or simple replacements that border on maintenance or need. So the first one that we have in our thing that we talk about is gutter and downspouts and related accessories. Replacement with the materials, with the same materials and like size and style. This we've had people replace stuff with. Some of the stuff, and I'll point out the fact that when most of the items that come in, if there's a slight differentiation, we'll do it, but we prefer to bring those types of things to the Historic District Commission if they're gonna be deviations from things. So we do prefer that as an option unless it's just so simple or so necessary, or it's a case of emergency, and I'll get to that in a couple minutes. The second one is open metal fences, and my recommendation for that last one was just to leave it. Open metal fences such as chain link and wrought iron that comply with Chapter 6 of the City Code. The Chapter 6 has now been incorporated into Chapter 40, which is the zoning ordinance. It's zoning ordinance 10.10. So we would follow that, and then we would say also the recommended changes would be is if we're going to keep that, add in aluminum in typical wrought iron style and patterns. And then again, we want to change the Chapter 6 language to Chapter 40, 10.10. So what the goal would be when we come back with this is that depending on what your thought processes are on this, is to take and come back with a new list of administrative approvals, more or less, or adding some new ones in. It's not essential that we have a solution for this today, but once we talk about this, you may have ideas and you may want to email them to me and bring them to the next meeting so I can actually have a proposed list of administrative approvals. But to change the language in Chapter 6 to Chapter 40, 10.10 is going to be necessary no matter what we do with that. 3, the driveway and walkway replacement provided that routing and materials are not changing. As you're aware, with the exception of like a couple things that I can think of, all of that stuff has come back before the Historic District Commission. So when we had one where we had a porch and somebody wanted to have a routing change where it came from the side drive to the porch, that came before the Historic District Commission. So anything where there's a material or routing change, we bring to the commission. Even there was one that was on York, not too far from Jeff's house, where the guy wanted to add a walkway through the side yard, and it was determined that, well, it's subgrade, so it doesn't matter. But we have it on here, so we need to either have that discussion or allow that to be administratively approved, because if we're considering sidewalk and walkways subgrade, then we have to think about how we're proceeding with this, and that bears some discussion. And then also the materials. When you're taking a look at it, concrete has changed in competition, aggregates change. There are some colors available now that were not always available. There are dyes. And again, there are sidewalks and walkways. But if it's changing from a walkway from concrete to pavers, that's something that's going to come to you.
Hey,
Well,
just a quick question about that
yeah.
one. This is just a definition. Does that only things in front yards or side yards, rear yards? Tell me a little bit about, is there
Well,
something that governs
his-
what triggers, what doesn't?
Historically, we've always been allowed administratively to approve patios and the like in the backyard. So that only leaves the front yard where it would be to do that. So as we get going, you'll see that there's porches, there's other types of concrete. So we should talk about all of that when I get to that point.
Okay,
And then, because you want to have that discussion, because either we want to maybe lump some of these things together or separate more of them out. And that's going to be up to you folks as to what you want to do. Again, replacement of uncovered porches with the same or like materials of the same size and style. Anything that changes it, like, and we had one that came before you that normally would not have come before you, and the reason is that they changed the size. So that had to come back to you. So that's typically what happens with this. We now have a system where all of our BS&A software, which we're starting to utilize more to its full potential, has all the historic properties now flagged in it. So anyone that comes in with a project that's historic will come now, 100% will come to my desk. Whereas before, it didn't necessarily do that because we didn't have these options. All of the actions of the Historic District Commission with respect to these houses and notices to, notices to proceed and certificates of appropriateness, even denials, will now be recorded on the BSNA software. So we're making gains in record keeping for this, which is good because a lot of times, back when we started this, things would come in and they would get past us. They simply would. Now we've tightened it to where it'd be less possible for that to happen, and we'll have records of all of this. And with the BSNA software, a lot of that is available online, where residents, contractors, and other entities can use that BSNA software to see what this is. So we're kind of excited about getting all that hooked up and doing that. So that'll work. And then contractors will get like a PIN number, which allows them to even pull permits. But the PIN numbers for historic properties still have to go through our process.
What is BSNA?
BSNA is a software company, and what it does is it tracks all your building permits, it issues your building permits, it tracks all of our code enforcement issues right now. So what we're doing is that we started a few years ago with the BSNA software. BSNA is a program. BSNA is a company that puts out software, and in that software there's limitless possibilities as to what you can do. So you can actually put the blueprints to the houses on these things. You can put additions, you can put minutes, you can put, like for variances, we put variances on there now. So anything that we have, like if there's been an issue or a motion or whatever, now when the permit is issued for it, we take the motion and it becomes part of the stipulation that's issued on the permit. So we're pretty excited about where this is going for our historic houses in particular, because you've got 108 homes, and not everybody that would be dealing with this would be his historian or historic oriented, but the computer now will tell them exactly what to do. And that'll be really helpful. So we are excited with that. But that is the software. I'm certainly, if any of you would like to come in and see how the software works, I'm more than happy to show you. It's kind of exciting how this is working for us as far as our whole, and as far as not only just historic, but our planning commission, our zoning board of appeals. And what it's going to do is it's forcing us to be more efficient. We also have, and Jane has been with us for about a year, who is an absolute wizard at the BSNA software. And she came to us through Madison Heights, which obviously has an awful lot more going on than Huntington Woods does. But she has a unique knowledge of the BSNA, and she teaches me something different every day. So this is really good, and we're excited about it. And then these standards can be incorporated in what we're looking at here for administrative approvals, can be incorporated into that, so that when we approve them administratively, we can now go to the BSNA software and state what we approved, why we approved, and how we did it, and it's not a scribble on a plan or something like that. So this is much more upscale than that, so we're happy for that. And again, the offer is open for anybody that wants to take a look at this. Okay, so we talked about the replacement of uncovered porches. And again, painting where brick or masonry is not being painted for the first time. I will tell you that painting and staining masonry are two wildly different things. I will tell you that if I could find the person that first painted my house long before I got it, I would love to have a discussion, because now I'm pretty much married to it, because I've got soft brick and the paint's not coming off and I can't restore it, and it's really cool brick. So that's the kind of thing. So before it's painted for the first time, that'll come to the Historic District Commission if they want to do it, because my answer for painting brick for the first time in the Historic District is typically gonna be no, and they're gonna have to come and explain to you why that's something that should happen. 6, re-roofing where the material is being replaced with the same or like material or same shingle style, or go back to the original as substantiated. My recommendation is leave this as is, and the reason for that is that when people come in for roofs, a lot of time, they've got an issue, they've got a problem, the roof is leaking, it's going into the house, or something has happened, or a tree branch has created a leak, or there's something like that, and waiting 30 days or 45 days to get to a Historic District Commission meeting for them to do that is not making good sense, and it doesn't really protect the resource like it should. This is one of the things where we do get a few of these, and I will say within the last year, we've probably approved 3 of these administratively. There was one where there was a slight shingle variation, and what we do in that case is we call either the chair or vice chair to see if they want to see it back, and if the answer is yes, it comes back. If the answer is no, it becomes no. And one of the ones that we had one on Dundee where there was a wood roof that came off of the house and had to be replaced. Conversely, we've also had, back when the Historic District started, there was the Bratton House where the house had wood shingles and the wood shingles were failing, and there was some additions and there was other parts of the house, and they came before the Historic District and they went and put the wood shingles on. So a lot depends on the project, the size, the scope, the budget, and to see what it is. So that's one that I would recommend leaving as is. 7, shutters when matching the existing in size, design, and configuration of materials. My recommendation is leave as is with a caveat that you should have a discussion about. A lot of times, the matching shingles that match, or the matching shutters that match in size, the size of the shutters that are on some of the houses were put on prior to the Historic Commission being formed and are incorrect as far as their size to begin with. So typically where a shutter would cover half of the window and the other shutter would cover the other half, and you could close them in order to protect them, what you see is 12-inch shutters on the sides of the openings, which do not do anything for that, and actually kind of look a little bit awkward when you see that. And then when you go to Home Depot or places like that, they typically don't sell any of the wider shutters. So you either have to go to a specific place that'll make shutters or have them, but it's not typically a Lowe's product or a Home Depot product for that type of thing. But again, you can discuss that and decide what you want to do with that, because going back to original configuration or the correct configuration, that wording might want to clarify a few things. And 8, windows storm replacement when done with the same pattern, size, and scale. Most of the time, all the windows do go to the full HDC. We have had cases where they're using different materials, whether or not it's pattern size, whether or not the Muntin bars are 5/8, 7/8, whether the rails and stiles are 2 1/4, 3 1/4. When you start getting into that, and it does make a difference when you see it from the street, and you do notice the glazing area is different, I would like to recommend that you leave it as is, but explore whether the same dimension clad windows can be included with this demonstration of severe deterioration, demonstration of severe deterioration, meaning that if you have a wood window and you're going to accept a clad window, provided that it has the same dimension of rails, stiles, and Muntin bars, then perhaps you should include that in here and have that approved administratively. If you get into a thing where there is a severe or a significant change in the rails, stiles, and Muntin bars and profiles of the windows, I don't want to approve that administratively. That should come before the Historic District Commission. So that's one of the things that you want to look at. Also, define TDL and SDL, as they can be the same pattern, but they are not the same thing. So whether or not you have shadow effects, whether or not you have true divided lights, whether or not you have simulated divided lights, you may want to call those specific things out and decide what to you is and is not acceptable. So those are another thing that you might wanna talk about, you may wanna think about, and again, I will send this presentation to you, I'll email it to you, so that you'll have it, you can take a look at it and, make any notes or send me any notes that you want with it. And then 9, hot tubs, pools were not visible from the street, providing no trees are disturbed. Recommendation, this falls under the same as decks and patios. If it isn't visible from the street, there shouldn't be an issue. It's below grade in most cases. The hot tubs in most cases can be removed. A lot of the hot tubs nowadays are even portable, so that they have some hot tubs that are heavy-duty vinyl and heavy grade like that people put on their patios. We still require permits for it because you still have a proximity to electrical wires that has to be concerned, proximity to buildings, and where, you have your water and that type of thing, whether what you're putting it on will actually hold it, which is some things that people don't think about before they put a hot tub on a deck that barely supports its top, its top boards as it is, and then they add a substantial size hot tub on top of it, and then wonder why it collapses. So we wouldn't want to do that. So those are the things to consider with that. And as far as it being below grade, like in-ground pools, if you can't see an in-ground pool above grade, it goes to like what we were talking about with egress windows, and we had that conversation in the past, that shouldn't be an issue. And then a lot of that is that when you take a look at any of this from the street, because of the elevation of the pool, because of the elevation of the decks, it shouldn't be an issue. So those are things to consider. 10, ornamental iron replacement with the same pattern, size, material, and scale. So now we have to define what happens when documentation is not available, missing, or lost. Robert brought to our attention on a couple of projects where you know it was there, but you didn't know what it was. And if there's no documentation to it, and you go to the other architecture of the house, and you see that there's a rail on the front, maybe that would be more appropriate, but we should define that. The other thing is that you can take a look at the year of the house, you can take a look at other houses that were built around that time, and see what they have and what they used, and make a somewhat educated decision with this. There's a tremendous company, and I'm gonna blow their horn for a minute. They're in southwest Detroit, and they make wrought iron, specific wrought iron, and they will make whatever you want, and they will make whatever you need, and their work and their craftsmanship is absolutely fantastic. And there's been some rails built for some of my family members that are just magnificent, and the detail is absolutely great. I'm not going to blow anybody's horn here, but they know what I'm talking about. So having said that, that's one of the things that you may want to have a discussion as well. Now we're on to number 11, replacement of light fixtures provided they are not a character-defining feature of the resource. 1, define whether that includes the front, sides, and the back. A lot of time what we have happen is if you have the 2-story colonials, they've had the long chain that comes down from the top and has a wrought iron fixture with it, with the globe inside. It's an integral part of the actual fixture, and the glass panels are part of that. So that's one thing. It's going to be on the front. Clearly, that's a character-defining feature. Now, the fixtures that go on the back, whether the little coach lamps that may have been changed 6 times in the last 20 years, because they're simply not made as good as the other ones, to be honest with you, and they don't work as well. So you want to define where that is, what fixtures are included, are the back included, or do you want to say that it's okay provided that the fixture is not an original fixture to the property? So you want to look at that and discuss that too. And then also, you have to define whether it includes both districts. Rackham has some magnificent fixtures on the front porch, absolutely magnificent fixtures. And then they've got like a sodium or sort of metal halide fixtures on the back part of it over the door. Some of the doors have been replaced with a solid steel door, which is absolutely not the least bit appropriate. And that's one of the things that you want to take a look at with that. You also want to exclude fire hazard and broken fixtures from HDC review. If it's a fire hazard or if it's something that's broken and becomes dangerous, you should exempt that. Number one, if the fixture can't be replaced or if the fixture can't be repaired, obviously it can be replaced. But if it creates a hazard, that's something you want to look at. If you get the chance, what I would suggest that you do is, because this happens more on the Rackham Golf Course than it does anywhere else, take a look around the Rackham building. Walk up the front porch, look up. There's some highly articulated beams there, there's some phenomenal lights that go there, and take a look around and then walk around to the back of the building. We've recently got into a very good relationship with the people that are now working at Rackham, and very thankful for them because they want to work with us as far as improving it. We did get a new fence. We're looking at 2024 according to them. So the new fence that's all rusted and bent up around there is going to be looked at being replaced in the City of Detroit budget for 2024, which is phenomenal. That would be much welcomed. And then there's going to be some changes that have to be made as we go through, and they understand that we're coming through to go take a look at it and see what things need to be upkept and maintenance. They've had a lot of roof problems over the last few years, and they've replaced like with like, so that we have approved. There's been engineers involved because part of the roof is rotted right through, and they had to be structurally repaired from the inside. So that's all transpired, and all of that has gone through administrative approvals for the actual roof materials. None of the terracotta roof that was there currently since the historic district was taken established in 2006 has been removed. The ones that were broken and had to be replaced came from a supply that was actually at the golf course. So they were able to put some of the actual tiles, the clay tiles, back on and repair some of the ones where they had a problem with. Part of the main roof that overhangs and goes front to back, which is an east-west gable, it's actually, more of a hip or, kind of a mansard style, or it's a combination of things, but it is, that's shingles, and that was done prior to the city of Huntington Woods having the historic district there. It would have been wonderful if we could have kept that with the clay tiles, because that's just a phenomenal look. The gutters that they have in there, the integral copper gutters, they go through there and they come down, and they're inside the terracotta. So that's things that we want to make sure that we keep there. So we've made a time. It's probably going to be next week that we do our walkthrough there and look at things, and then we'll be formulating a letter, and I will have some documentation for you at the next meeting, letting you know what's going on, because one of the ways that we can get that fixed up, including some of the painting and protective coatings for the materials, is through the demolition by neglect, and that was one of the reasons that we got the first roof issue that they had replaced, because we were doing that. So Rackham is an interesting thing, and we're trying to go through with it because if you don't catch it and it deteriorates even more, and then with the understanding that we have one government working with another government, and it's not always light speed. So we want to make sure that while we have people that are interested in making sure that the building stays as it was, that we take advantage of that. So, but we do have to take a look at it. Light fixtures has been a problem at Rackham in the past, more so than the residences. But it would be nice to have some distinction as to whether or not there's anything front, sides, for that. And then I would certainly love to be able to replace some of the fixtures that have been put on the building in the back, back to something that was more consistent with what actually was there. So that would be one of the things with the light fixtures, but I got off into the racket thing because that was what this actually goes to. So, excavation for water or sewer replacement lines, that just has to happen. No facilities, they can come in, they can fix the thing, come in the next day for the permit, and they get it. It's anywhere in the city. Toilets don't work, you can't flush your toilets, it comes up in your basement, that has to be fixed. And my recommendation is continue in any and all below-grade staff approvals and change the language to reflect all. And that means water lines as well, sewer lines as well, electrical lines as well, cable lines, whatever else that there may be. That should be, because it's under the grade, staff would recommend that you include that. 13, decks and rear yard patios. Again, our scope for this is not visible from the street and has no effect on the streetscape. We do recommend that you continue the staff approvals for this, because otherwise what you do is you have a limited season where people are putting in decks and rear yard patios, and by the time they get to the historic district, they've already lost a third of their summer, spring and summer. So that's one of the things we would like to keep that the same.
Hank, excuse me.
Yes, sir.
That is not always the case where a rear yard is not visible from the street. We just had this a few months ago.
No, you're talking about the shores and whether or not that is.
Right.
If it's something like that where it is visible from the street and it is a rear yard patio or it's borderline, it would come to you just like that one did. So,
Does it not need to be called out in the rewriting of this?
and that may be possible, so that's why I'm bringing this to you,
Okay.
because there are language changes and there are some linguistic changes that you may want to make. So there's nothing here that you can't propose, there's nothing here that you can't propose a change to, and there's nothing here that you can't leave alone. So what we're doing this is because we're actually going through all of this, we want your input. So again, when I send this out, this is something that you can comment on, and I know when we come to like the Rackham ones that Robert's gonna have a particular, and actually Mark too, a particular set of knowledge, because we all sat in the basement going through blueprints and plans on this many years ago. And they'll have a knowledge of what was there and an understanding of what was correct for that period of time. But you can, but I would like to continue staff approvals of that, but I would like to do that. If there's some language that you want to add to that, that's fine. And you can even put something as simple, Robert, as that where it's situated in a rear yard on a conventional lot and there's no visibility from the side, from the street, and it's stepped in, you can add that kind of language to it. 14 is basement egress windows in the side or rear of the building. When people modify the inside of their house and they put sleeping quarters or such in the basement, it's going to require an egress window. So again, if it's below grade, and we talked to when Mr. Odell was in on New York and he was putting in below grade, he didn't want to have a room down there where he could have sleeping quarters, and he wanted to block it off, that he could do that. So again, below grade egress windows in the side or rear of the building, which is the only place they're allowed. Huntington Woods does not allow them in the front of the structure without an appeal to the Zoning Board of Appeals. So that would have to happen. Oops, sorry. And then air conditioners and generators in the side yard with the neighbor's approval. This is consistent with code and change is not recommended. The reason being is that a lot of times on houses, you have patios, you have windows. Air conditioners are fine in the side yard typically. They're okay in the rear yard, but with the generators, you can't have it exhausting within 5 feet of an openable window. So the way that our building official interprets that is that you can't have it, period, within 5 feet of an openable window. So either that sticks it out in the backyard a little bit, or in the middle of a patio, or in the middle of a deck, which is completely impractical and doesn't work, or you allow them in the side with the neighbor's approval. The neighbor's approval does two things. It's the same whether it's in the historic district or not in the historic district. The problem with the neighbor's approval is that it allows the neighbor to act as a de facto zoning board of appeals, which is another discussion, because if the neighbor says yes, you're good to go. If the neighbor says no, then you're not good to go. So it puts an awful lot of power in their hands. But having said that, that's what our code is, and that's what the pleasure of the city commission is, so that's what we'll keep doing. Tree removal when diseased or dead. We do get some of this. It doesn't come up often. What our procedure for this is that we get a confirmation from an arborist or from one of our DPW members that has extensive experience with it, and depending how obvious it is, if it's obvious, then we don't need to have the arborist. If it's not obvious and somebody is claiming it because they don't want the tree, we want to make sure that they have an arborist report, and we have done so in the past on this. We haven't done it in a while, and again, this only applies to private trees which are on the historic resources. City trees that will have issues or problems or splits or become weak or be silver maples or species that are not good, those are ones that are going to come down. The city's always going to take the safe route, and, to protect our residents. So that's what's going to happen with that. So we recommend specifically denote private trees on this and add the verbiage dying to match code. If you have it where it says diseased or dead, there's a point in the time in the middle between when it starts to get its disease and when it's dead that the tree is still very dangerous. So adding that language dying would be helpful in the administrative approvals. Because right now I kind of have to have one or the other, or I've got to have a competent authority declare it as such where it's not viable. So adding the dying to that would match our code for the rest of the city. And then the Hill versus Rackham administrative approvals. I think we're at a point where we have opportunity to require differentiations. Are we limiting things to the building? How does the cell tower play in? How does the fencing play in? And again, the cell tower is something where with the one cell tower, we didn't have a choice. That was a public safety cell tower that was part of the state police and Homeland Security and the city of Detroit, and they had a right to do that. While we had a right to discuss it and to bring it to people's attention, ultimately it was going to be approved. So what we're doing is we're looking at that, and anything that doesn't have a by right law, meaning that it doesn't have something in a state statute, or it doesn't have something that's already been adjudicated, or it doesn't have something where we're going to have a clear court issue of which we have no chance of winning, we're going to go by what the city attorney recommends. And in that case, that's what that is. For example, our cell tower on Rackham, which is the Verizon tower, that actually has 12 more feet that they can add on to that by right. Anything after that, that's part of that. If they go outside of the building, if they go for other things, that's things that would come to the city. If they want to expand the compound, if they wanted to go anything outside of the fence for the compound, that would come to the city of Huntington Woods Historic District Commission. But that's really where that is. So we've had an awful lot of things that we've talked about. I'm going to send this to you. If there's anything that you want to discuss now or questions you have now, that'd be fine. But what I would encourage you to do is to go ahead and take a look at this and perhaps come up with some ideas. Feel free so that I can create a document for you with some of your thoughts and put it all together. Now, I'm going to get different ideas from different people, and some people may not like the verbiage, and you may have to vote on some of the verbiage. But having said that, this is an opportunity to go ahead and do this, so I thank you for your time in looking at it with me. So, if there's any questions, Mr. Chair, I'll turn the lights on.
I have a verbiage question.
Yes, sir.
Specifically for Mark. Frequently, we come across the word like. in replacing something like, L-I-K-E. To me, that's so nebulous. It could be almost anything. Is there a definition of like that we could use or that we could construct?
Not that I know of. I think, the word is inherently ambiguous.
So maybe,
I
Yeah.
think when we look at like, or what it would mean to me, if somebody was bringing it into me, it would be like. Like doesn't mean taking a wrought iron light fixture with wavy glass on the inside of it and swapping it out for a mason jar can outside light. That's not like. Like would be a similar material. Like would mean if you're taking out a wrought iron fixture, or you're putting back a wrought iron fixture. It would not be swapping out fixtures of different sizes and scale, because if you look at the old fixtures, and there's houses on Henry in particular, Robert, that had the chains hanging down with the fixtures like that, well, those are character defining features, and taking that down and putting up a small light over the doorway is not the same thing. So if you wanted to create some kind of verbiage or become more descriptive about what like means, you certainly could propose that, absolutely.
yeah, I think that's a discussion we should have.
Yeah.
What is like and how can we tighten that up?
Whatever,
Yeah.
whatever you would like to do, this is the opportunity to do it, so, because we haven't done this in a long time, so it'd be good to do that.
And when you use the term like, I think you have to be somewhat definitive in its use in saying of like size, or you'd say of like nature, rather than simply like a light.
So you say of like size, the question becomes, at what point does it become unlike?
Well, when you say of like size, that's pretty clear, I think, in my mind. I mean, same size.
I think that's the question we have to ask. Is that what it means? Same.
I don't think it's that subjective. I mean, objective, and it's not ambiguous in that sense. When you say of like size, or
You could take the word like
Of
right
what?
out of the equation.
Yeah.
And say of the same material, of the same size, or within a limit of size.
that's a much better way of dealing with it.
Then you can do that, and then you can take the word like right out of the equation if that's what your pleasure is. That's again up to you, and again, this is something where you could discuss this forever. My suggestion is send me your thoughts, and let me put together a list for you. We've actually got here 16 things that we could discuss. Some of them are not going to be problematic, but there's some that we clearly want to take a look at, and I would ask that you pay particular attention to the differentiation between the Hill District and the Rackham District, because they are two different entities with two distinctly different problems.
I think you sent us a list before of the administrative approvals you had in the past. It would be easier for me, if it's not too much trouble for you, to take that original list and just redline it. In other words, to go through it and just add language or change language.
I can send that to you, and then you can redline it and send it back to me. Whatever you want to do, I absolutely can do that.
No, I mean, what I meant was that this is a different format, the
It's
presentation.
a
you gave-
different format, yeah.
And my thought is, it might be easier for all of us if you just took your original document and
Happy to do that.
just run through it, and then then we're all working with the same text.
Happy to.
Do you know what I mean? And I think that'll make our next discussion go much faster, I think.
Absolutely happy to do that.
Yeah. I'm also thinking about that question of like, or similar, or such as, all of the terms that we use from a semantic standpoint. But the problem with that is that when you're talking about questions of style, then that's where the commission has work to do, because in every situation, you're gonna define it a little bit differently. I
Well, we're
think.
not supposed to be an aesthetics commission.
You know, that's an issue.
Well, but you do,
Well,
we're
not supposed to, we're supposed to just be, these are the standards doesn't meet.
An issue that often comes up in statutory construction, where you have, there's a, what's called sui generis, where you have, say, a list of things in a statute, and the question is whether that is limited to the specific things that are mentioned, or whether anything that falls within the same class of things is included, under the doctrine of sui generis. This is not a unique issue.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a good way to start, Jeff. Your point about sending that out is great. I'll get that out to you guys tomorrow. You can take a look, redline, whatever your pleasure is. I believe I have it in a Word document, so it should be easy to edit. If in the event that all I have is a PDF, I'll do the best I can to cut and paste it so that we can do that.
Get it to me, I'll convert it, and then we can do track changes.
That's fine.
It's just an easy way,
That's fine.
if that's, and we can even do a cloud-based. If you really want to get kooky, we could all be working on it at the same time. Let me know, I can
Because then
help.
people are changing what people have proposed, and
You
then
can't-
it's not.
You can't
So-
necessarily change, well,
Right,
the
but
track
we don't
changes.
need books on every one of these, so I mean, ideally, a few things. And like Robert's concerned about light, that's a valid concern. I mean, what does it mean? It's gonna mean something different to you than it will to me, than it will to Mark, or will to Steve, so, maybe we should try to nail that down. But the main impetus for this is also, Rackham. And I would encourage you to take a walk around the building on the outside of that as well. So, other
Can
than-
we go there? It's not.
Of course you can.
yeah, you can, it's
It's
open,
public.
it's open,
Of course you can.
I
It's
mean, the
public
gate's
health.
open,
You have to play a round of golf when you go.
no,
Or you have to leave
beautiful,
a ticket
but
for me to
it's
play
sad
around.
and beautiful at the same
No,
time.
actually, yeah, and they're very accommodating. You can go in there and you can see Adam, Angie, Karen Peak is still there, and these people are very accommodating. They have a really good team working over there now, so they're very anxious to get with us on this. One last thing that I have, and then I'll actually stop talking, is it looks like we're going to get our historic marker for this spring.
Yay, where?
We have agreed with the city of Detroit to have it located in a very prominent location on the center island as you pull in and pull around in the front of the golf course. So everybody will see it coming and going. So, very good news. We were very happy with how that went. And prior to it getting here, which they are way behind, which means we're not even gonna see it till January or February. You will all be notified and there will be people there. I still have, access to some of Ben Davis's family, and, some of you may or may not know, Ben Davis was a long, long time pro at Rackham Golf Course, and was the first African-American, to hold that position at an 18-hole municipal golf course public. And we named a street coming in off of the service drive for him, Ben Davis Drive. His relatives and family were there, were great. I will tell you that I was at his 102nd birthday party, and it was great. He always had something to say, so that's a good thing, but that's another exciting thing. So once we get that in and we place it, our DPW is going to place it, so we'll be in real good shape with that, but I wanted to share that with you as well. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything.
I have one more
Unless you have
question.
any questions, yes.
Did you find out about that MHPN workshop on the 28th in Livonia, the training session?
I did not.
So there's a training session in Livonia on the 28th, hosted by MHPN. And they sent out a weird notice. It was only a
They
Facebook
did send out a
notice.
weird notice, yeah, and we don't have a Facebook, so.
Yeah, it was only a Facebook notice. I'm going to be going to that. I go to all those training sessions.
Okay.
They're good.
Do you wanna, maybe you can share the info with the rest of us?
Yeah,
If-
I'll send it, I think I sent it to you.
I think, yeah, I mean, I can send it out, but I can't open a Facebook link. So if you have, like,
Take a
send me the
screenshot.
whole thing and I can pass that out.
Yeah, okay, I'll do
But
that.
the only one that has a Facebook really is the library that I'm understanding.
I'll send it to you tomorrow
Rec
morning.
Center, so. Yeah, that's great. You can send it to me tonight now. Get it out. We still do that, so. Other than that, Mr. Chair, I don't have anything else unless there's more questions.
I have one other thing.
Sure.
The website for the commission needs to be updated with the current list of commissioners.
We have a communications person that is starting September 12th, is my understanding.
Hmm.
Or maybe I have that wrong, maybe that's the finance person that's starting the 12th. But we have somebody that's going to be handling the website from us on a regular basis. And at the end of this year, we have people that are going to be changing, coming on, coming off our boards and commissions, and that'll be part of their understanding to do that. They'll also be in charge of putting the minutes on the site, the agendas on the site, and that's gonna be part of what they do. So, not
Great.
just for historic, but for all of it, so we'll have some consistency, and we're excited about that.
Great.
Thank
Careful,
you.
people will know what's going on.
It's nice. Well, Hank, I guess we have public participation, but seeing none, I guess I'll be looking for some people's favorite motion. Anyone want to make a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I'm going to second that one. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you, Hank.
Thank you, everybody, I really appreciate it.
Thanks, Hank.